Hey everyone, welcome to 30 Ways to Happy Days. I'm Alana Yvonne from Truly Great Life, and welcome to way number 2. So if you missed the earlier video for way number 1, that was learning the formula, which we call PERMA, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement or accomplishment. And that is the framework, the formula, the theory behind positive psychology for having and experiencing well-being, for thriving, for flourishing. So if you haven't seen or listened to that, be sure to check that out. And today for way number 2, we're going to talk about character strengths. So you may have already heard of character strengths. You may already be familiar with them. And as we get into this, you'll be like, oh, I definitely am familiar with what she's talking about. But if not, that's awesome. It's always a good day in my book if we learn one new thing. So hopefully this will include some new stuff for you. So way number 2, character strengths. Now, character strengths are basically the ways in which we can achieve what we learned about earlier, which is PERMA. Okay? So if PERMA is the what we want to have, or the framework in which we can experience well-being, happiness, thriving, when it comes down on like the action level or the like what can I do about it level, it's engaging with and using your character strengths. Now, in order to do that, we kind of need to know what they are, right? So basically, there are positive characteristics or traits that describe what is best in people, okay? And what I love about working with character strengths when I work with my clients and in sharing about them is that every single human being on the planet has them. When the researchers in the beginning of the field of positive psychology were doing their research, they looked at basically throughout the globe, throughout different cultures, religions, philosophies going back like 2,500 years, and kind of looking at what does each of these different approaches say about the good life, so that they could come up with an idea that would be universally applicable and helpful for people today to tap into what that is. All right, that was kind of a shift in the field of psychology, of kind of a focus on what happens when things go wrong, or kind of like things that are a little more problem solving, let's say, versus like how can we be proactive in understanding what makes for a good life, to put it simply, and then how can we quantify that or characterize that in a way that people can learn it and have more of it. So I hope that might have been a little convoluted, but I hope that was clear enough that this is, again, coming from more of a positive psychology approach. And if you belong to a certain faith or practice, this all may sound, or much of this may sound familiar, but it's really important to understand, I think, that this is true for everyone and that the character strengths reside in everyone. So just to get a little more deeply into them, we have 24 of them, okay? Character strengths, these traits that are what's best in people, they basically fulfill us personally, but they also do not diminish others. So it's like a win-win all around when we talk about them. Character strengths are different from other kinds of strengths that you may have learned about or heard about. And character strengths are also different than, they're different from talents, they're different from resources, they're different from skills, okay? So we're talking about everyone at every level. It's not talking necessarily about intellectual level, let's say, okay? This is like the great equalizer, so that anybody from any background, from any situation, from any capacity, whatever they might be studying or doing, this is like our common denominator as human beings. And it's why I just love it, because I think what it ultimately does is provide a vocabulary of understanding other people. And it provides a language for empathy and seeing other people in their character strengths, in their humanness, even and despite all differences. So I love this. It's something that, again, I mentioned I've used with, and I do use with my clients. I've worked with schools with this. I use this in my own life with my kids. And it's something that can be very, very helpful for empathy, which I think we could all use both personally and on a larger scale. So the other thing to know is that character strengths are things that when you are aware of them and you know which ones maybe are more easily accessible to you, the ones that are kind of what we call your top or signature strengths. I like to call them superpowers. When we're aware of the ones that we have that are more accessible to us, that are easy for us to use, that feel essential to who we are, and they also give us energy, like when we're able to tap into using them in whatever we're doing, we will experience more PERMA, okay? We will experience more positive emotions. We will experience more engagement. We will have a greater sense of meaning. We will be able to connect to those accomplishments that we set out to do in a way that feels really like more authentic for who we are. So they're just fabulous all around. So again, this way number 2 is character strengths. And I want to actually, I don't have them all memorized. I don't want to forget any. So I have my own little cheat sheet here with all of them. And you can look these up online really easily. But just to go through them, and here I'm going to turn it to you as I'm going through them. Maybe take a piece of paper and just jot down the ones that resonate for you as like, oh yeah, that's totally one of my go-to character strengths, okay? So again, we have 24 of them, and you can think of them as like muscles. Okay, everybody has all of these muscles, but you don't necessarily use all these muscles, right? A bodybuilder or someone who's really fit may use certain muscles more than like a couch potato. Guilty, right? Like not all muscles are going to be used, but that doesn't mean we don't have them. I'm sure I have a six-pack somewhere, but it's, not what we're, it's not my, it's not a muscle that I am exercising using regularly. Okay, so I'm not sure if that metaphor analogy really works, but basically when you think of them as muscles and you know that everybody has them, they may not be using them as often, as easily, okay, but that doesn't mean that they're not there, okay? However, the research shows that when you use the character strengths that are at the top for you, right, like I said, superpowers, when they're easier and you're using them and you're tapped into them for approaching whatever project you're working on or whatever challenge you're dealing with, that is where like we experience more of that PERMA, more of that joy, more of that happiness. This is 30 Ways to Happy. I'm giving this to you straight. Know the formula, right? Know the framework, because knowledge is power, and knowing what it is or being reminded of what it is if you already are familiar with this, it puts us back in the driver's seat of our day-to-day experience in terms of how we react to things beyond our control and also the actions that we can take. Okay? So turning it back to the character strengths, I'm going to read them out loud. Just write down the ones that resonate with you as like, oh yeah, that's totally me. So we have creativity, we have perspective, judgment, and it's important to know judgment, and we're going to get into all these in the next remaining 27 days, but 20, I can't do math. In any case, we're going to go really deep into these. Judgment is not being judgy. There's plenty of judginess out there, right? Judgment is really like critical thinking, the ability to discern. Okay, so that's what we mean when we say judgment as a character strength. Curiosity, honesty, which is also authenticity, bravery. So for example, bravery is not one of my top strengths, but I am totally tapping into bravery by producing, creating this video series that I've committed to for the next 30 days. Okay. So I'm definitely tapping into bravery, or yay me, and a little pat on the back, even though it's not one of my like go-tos. So that's just one example in real time of like how we can think about character strengths in our day-to-day. Fairness, humor, zest, perseverance. Even though I've had some technical snafus, like I am going to use my strength of perseverance and continue to do these videos. Teamwork. I'm going to come clean. Teamwork is not a top character strength for me. And that doesn't mean I can't tap into it or do it, but it's like it becomes stressful if that has to become my modus operandi. So, and this is an example of like a lower strength or a strength that even though you may have the muscle, you're like, no, not gonna use that if I can avoid it, or that's not really giving me energy, that doesn't feel essential to who I am, that doesn't, that's not easy for me to use. when we're in situations, for example, at work or at school or in a relationship or whatever, that requires us to regularly use character strengths that are not our top character strengths, it could build up the stress, right? So just to be aware of it. Are you in a situation right now where you've got like this ongoing stress, maybe because it's requiring you to use other things as well, talent, skills, resources, other kinds of strengths, but are there any character strengths that it's requiring or demanding of you, and short term or long term, and just to be aware of that, okay? So just for example, when I was getting my MBA many years ago, like a ton of that is teamwork. And when I worked, I've been self-employed for many years now, but when I worked with other companies, obviously teamwork is a huge part of it. And that's not one of my top character strengths. So I can do it. I can, be part of it, but it was not easy for me. It wasn't energizing for me. It was draining. But there was the goal of whether it was getting the MBA or the goal of whatever it was at work. So just being aware of this. And also what has helped me and hopefully will help you is by learning these characters. I'm just taking a little detour here, but by learning about character strengths and learning the 24 character strengths and knowing they're all legit. They're all legit. They're all valid. They're all relevant. Again, this lens of empathy can help you appreciate the differences in other people as opposed to judging it, okay? So just because, I don't have the character strength of teamwork doesn't mean I'm going to judge someone who for that it's like a top one and they are just like an amazing team player. Leadership is another one. Like someone might be really good at bravery, whatever it is. And we're going to get into this as we dig deep, but in the future videos. But my point is, this language of empathy, as I like to think of character strengths, like this vocabulary can really open you up to other people. This has been the case for me. It's one thing when it's with a client, right? Or it's with someone like a couple degrees of separation and then it's another thing when it's in your personal relationships. And I'll just say that learning this, and it's been many years now, but enabled me to change my relationship with my children and my husband for the better, because it gave me a vocabulary of seeing their character strengths different as mine, but in a valid not a valid way, but like in a way that I can appreciate them. So I'm spending a little bit of time on this, but really I can't overestimate the power of learning character strengths, both for appreciating yourself and how you're made and like how you are, and that kind of modus operandi and that kind of just the way that you work and the way that things work for you. And then also seeing it in other people. Okay. And we're going to get much deeper into this. I forget where I was. Let's say teamwork, love, kindness, leadership. I hope you're writing down the ones that speak to you. Social intelligence, love of learning, forgiveness, hope, prudence. I will add here, there's like this, stigma against the word prudence. People think of prude, but it really just means, I love this, cautious wisdom. So if you're someone who prudence is a higher strength, that may not be culturally valued, let's say, depending on the culture that you're in with your friends or with your family or with the culture at large. Like, is prudence really valued? I would say based on like the proliferation of social media and what people put on social media and, shows out there, like reality shows, like prudence is not necessarily like culturally valued here in the States anyways. But if you are someone who is more cautious, who is more careful, again, it's cautious wisdom. It's a fantastic character strength. So all these character strengths are fantastic and valued and wonderful. Yes, I will continue with the list. So appreciation of beauty and excellence. I mentioned earlier that learning about these has helped me with my own relationships with my kids. And I have one kid who, when she took the test for the first time back in 2018, and her top result included appreciation of beauty and excellence. Unless, for those of you who know me in real life, like that's kind of a bottom one for me or a middle one for me. But it was really like an eye-opener because I'd never seen that before, and the way that appreciation of beauty and excellence comes out in the day-to-day would be something that I didn't appreciate. So if she needed to have her room a certain way and we were rushing to get out of the house, I'd be like, can't you leave it? Not with an OCD kind of way, but like, just having things a certain way or spending time, creating some. The whole point is it helped me see, one of my kids. It helps me see all my kids, but it was such an eye-opener as a parent to have language and words around how my kids are different, which is just fantastic, I think, for parenting. So, and that goes with any relationship. Humility, gratitude, self-regulation or self-control, self-discipline, and spirituality. So those are the 24. I think I got all of them. I know I kind of went a little all over the place, but learning character strengths, okay? 24 character strengths. That is way to happy days number 2, which is to know that these things exist and that they're important and that it's a way to really appreciate also yourself and also others and situations and everything. So we are going to be spending the next 24 videos digging deeper into each one of these character strengths. So I'm really excited to jump in and share a little bit about each one each day because it's something that can be life-changing. You can go look online again. You will find a ton of information out there. If this is just a way, to open the door for you to go do more research and find more ways to experience it, that's awesome. And your task for today, if you will, is to start thinking about strengths, character strengths, just from the little bit I've introduced here, and start thinking about which ones resonated from the list within you. And then you can think about like one more person in your life, whether that's a spouse or a significant other or a friend. You can think about it when you're watching a TV show and see like what character strengths you might be noticing, and just think about it, and we will get started tomorrow. So thanks again and have an awesome rest of your day.